It's been over a month since the military standoff started between China and India. India pledging to help its neighbor Bhutan, a landlocked state in the Himalayas, sent its troops over the China-Indian border, while China was constructing a road in the Doklam area near the Sikkim section of the boundary. New Delhi has since refused to fully withdraw its troops, despite repeated calls from Beijing to do so. The Chinese Foreign Ministry noticed that according to an 1890 convention between the UK and China, the Doklam area is indisputably Chinese territory. The ministry says the unauthorized crossing of such a delimited boundary is a very serious incident. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Gong Shuang went on record saying India's actions severely violate China's territorial integrity and pose grave challenges to regional peace and stability. He added that China and Bhutan have conducted several rounds of boundary talks, and India has no right to interfere or make territorial claims on Bhutan's behalf. Over 270 Indian troops crossed the Sikkim section of the China-Indian border in mid-June. As of the end of last month, over 40 members of the Indian military and one piece of heavy earth-moving equipment remained in Chinese territory. Meanwhile, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi earlier said the solution is simple, that is, India should immediately and without condition withdraw its troops from China's Doklam area. Li Jianhua, CGTN.
Standoff in the Doklam region continues, with China on Monday issuing its strongest warning yet to India over their month-long border dispute, saying Beijing would protect its sovereignty at all costs. Speaking just a week ahead of the 90th anniversary of the founding of the People's Liberation Army, Defense Ministry spokesman Wu Qian said, "We urge the Indian side not to take any chances or hold any illusions." He also added that it's easier to shake the mountain than to shake the PLA. The statement comes day before a high-level security officials meeting of the BRICS countries, in which the military standoff is likely to be at the top of the agenda. So why is China stepping up its rhetoric at this particular time? Meanwhile, on the Indian side, a candidate of the National Democratic Alliance, Ram Nath Kovind, has won the presidential election, becoming the second president of India from the Dalit community. Will he have any influence on Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's policymaking? Joining me from New Delhi is Srikanth Kondapalli, a professor at the Chinese Studies at the Jawaharlal Nehru University. And in Beijing, Mr. Ye Hailin, director of the Center for South Asia Studies at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. So let me start with our Chinese guest. Mr. Ye, Chinese and Indian forces remain locked in a standoff sparked by a local road construction project in a disputed border area shared with Bhutan. But the Chinese Defense Ministry has just issued its strongest warning yet over the standoff. So what message is China sending?
Firstly, I would like to clarify that this area is not a dispute area. It's Chinese territory. It's for sure, because it's recognized by the treaty signed almost 130 years ago and recognized by Indian government. Although Bhutan has some different opinion, but we also know for the very long term of the bilateral negotiation between China and Bhutan, these areas have never been on the target of the dispute. So we should clarify this. Not a dispute areas. So that's why Chinese attitude towards such kind of the accident is quite different away from the former accident happened before. And this time, I think for China, there's one thing for sure. Before the Indian army intrude Chinese territory, withdraw completely from Chinese territory, there won't be any negotiation. And China won't just sit down and stand off waiting for the season or the weather to change the whole atmosphere and make the two sides just separate and withdraw back to their stronghold. I don't think so. It's not an option.
Well, of course, that's a precondition that the Chinese Foreign Ministry and the Defense Ministry have been issuing all the time. So let me turn to our New Delhi guest here, Professor Kondapalli. So why do you think the things have turned so strongly in the past few days ahead of very important military level, security level conversation between the BRICS countries?
I think if you carefully look at Senior Colonel Wu Qian's statement, It also mentions a kind of conciliatory gesture. In his comments, he also mentioned that China is prepared to walk half the way. So this is the conciliatory gesture, which means that just a couple of days before State Councillor Yang Jiechi, as well as the National Security Advisor Mr. Ajit Doval, are meeting for the preparatory work for the BRICS summit meeting in Xiamen. There is also a chance for both of them to de-escalate tensions in this area.
But is it possible that China would walk halfway? Mr. Ye, does Beijing have any stronger bargaining power in the talks with New Delhi?
I think firstly we should also clarify one, this the high-level meeting between Mr. Duwa and Mr. Yang Jiechi is not for solve the current accident. It's only for the purpose of the ensure the success of the BRICS summit. I don't think that these two high-level security officers will engage the how to solve the problem at the border. And firstly, and secondly, we also should notice that the Chinese MFA and the PRA's attitude on so-called soft the tones has some precondition that the Indian army should leave the territory completely, and there's a precondition for the further negotiation. So China do leave the door open, but this open not for the totally for free. It's actually have some conditions, and currently I don't think China will has a kind of the alternative plan that's one while the Indian army still leave the Chinese territory and then launch the formal diplomatic channel to bargain or to negotiate. It's highly unlikely.
Professor Kondapalli, Narendra Modi's government has said India will be patient and peaceful in dealing with its neighbors, but like Mr. Ye said, China is insisting on a withdrawal of Indian troops from the region as a precondition for dialogue. Do you think India would follow suit?
It's always when two hands meet, you get the sound, you get the clap. I do not think that the only one precondition will prevail at the end. If there is no mutual concession on either side. For example, the External Affairs Minister, Mrs. Sushma Swaraj, spoke in the Indian Parliament the other day, and she suggested to mutual withdrawal, number one. Number two, she also suggested to the security concerns for India in terms of this road construction activity, and suggested that the status quo on June 15th should prevail in this area.
Well, I'm glad you quoted a very ancient Chinese saying that only two hands can form a clap. So, Mr. Ye, is it possible that there will be a mutual withdrawal, or China is still holding on to its precondition?
If such kind of accident happened on the dispute areas, it will be the neutral step. Or we can see that both sides will take some effort. But now it's the non-dispute areas. Legally, it's an intrusion, and we don't negotiate with the intruder.
One of the coldest spots in Asia continues to heat up. The Himalayan plateau of Doklam in an area China claims as its sovereign territory. It says Indian troops who've now been there for a month are trespassing and need to retreat.
We once again urged the Indian side to withdraw its border guards to behind the borderline immediately and unconditionally, and to settle the incident properly.
In mid-June, a Chinese construction firm, reinforced by a team of unarmed Chinese soldiers, had been building a road through the valley, a road that China insists was being built peacefully, when Indian soldiers moved in to block it. They had been based next door in the Kingdom of Bhutan. The small nation also claims the territory and asked its neighbor India to intervene. Since then, more troops have arrived. China says there will be no dialogue until they all leave. India is standing its ground, but insists the standoff will be resolved without any, quote, muscle flexing.
As far as Doklam area issue is concerned, we have diplomatic channels available. The embassies are there in both countries, and those channels will continue to be used.
More than 50 years ago, China and India fought a month-long war, again over a road. Last week, the Indian Defense Minister Arun Jaitley issued a rather ominous warning for China, saying, quote, "The situation of 1962 was different, and India of 2017 is different," a reference, some say, to modern India's nuclear arsenal. China has nukes as well. Officials from Delhi are scheduled to be in Beijing later this month for a meeting of the BRICS countries. The standoff will likely be high on the agenda. Some experts predict it may simply carry on until the winter, when freezing weather will force everyone to go home.
Now, this ongoing incident highlights the sticky relations between Asia's two giant powerhouses. Together, they account for nearly 40% of the world's population and share nearly 4,000 kilometers of unmanned border. Now, both sides know this could be just a small flare-up or perhaps the spark that ignites a much bigger fire. Back to you.
And we begin with the ongoing border standoff between China and India. It's been over a month since India sent its troops over the Chinese-Indian border. Though the numbers of trespassing soldiers have been lowered from 200 to around 40, tensions between China and India remain. In the past 24 hours, authorities from China's government, military, and even ruling Communist Party have one after another urged India to withdraw its troops immediately and sent out warnings with even stronger wording.
China is getting ever more impatient to India's provocative border trespassing. China's Defense Ministry weighed in Thursday night. In a statement on its website, the ministry says China has shown utmost goodwill and sought to communicate with India through diplomatic channels to resolve the incident. But goodwill has its principles and restraint has its bottom line. The ministry urges the Indian side to give up the illusion of its delaying tactic. It warns no country should underestimate the Chinese forces' capability and determination to safeguard peace. The ministry also stresses the Chinese armed forces will resolutely protect the country's territorial sovereignty and security interests. Chinese PLA's flagship newspaper also sent warnings to India. China's military development has been remarkable in recent years. So far, the Chinese Navy boasts 2 aircraft carriers, with one serving in the army while the other one has just finished construction. While India's only homemade aircraft carrier, Vikrant, which began construction in 2006, will not be delivered to the Navy before the year 2023. In terms of fighter jets, China has been focusing on self-development, and so far it has at least 6 prototypes of 5th-generation fighter jets, while India's 5th-generation fighter jets have yet to be seen. The core concern for India's military development is the global purchase of weapons. Incompatibility between weapons from different countries is going to hamper the military force of India. Recently, Chinese ground forces conducted multiple exercises in Tibet, China's bordering autonomous region with India. Though Beijing has reiterated its stances of peaceful resolution of the incidents, the PLA is ready for defensive action.
And for more on China-India border tensions, we are joined in our Beijing studio Senior Colonel Zhao Xiaozhuo, who is a senior fellow at the Academy of Military Sciences of the PLA, which is the People's Liberation Army here in China. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
And also joining us, we have from India, Atu Aneja, who is the China correspondent of The Hindu. Welcome as well.
Thank you.
Well, gentlemen, you are more experts than I am about this specific tension going on between China and India. I would like to begin with some very simple questions. Should there be border tensions between China and India in the current place? Let me go to you, Mr. Aneja, first from India.
Well, there should not be border tensions at all between India and China. Because the agenda of India and China as emerging economy is much bigger than just being locked up in a border standoff. So it should not take place at all, the border tensions. But in the specific area, why it has taken place, now there are 2 narratives here. There is an Indian narrative which talks about the change of status quo by China pending a resolution. This is in accordance with the 2012 agreement. Whereas we do have a Chinese narrative which is completely to the opposite. So we have competing narratives right now on why it took place. But the point really now is that it's time that this disengagement takes place over here, and it takes place on terms which are honorable to both countries.
Right. Should there be a tension between China and India? Are the two countries the parties that really should be involved in this so-called border tension?
I think Indian border troops crossing of China-Indian border in Sikkim sector is going to damage everything, damage whatever, all the efforts we have made over the 20 or 30 years. You know, since 1988, when Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi visited Beijing, Indian-China relations have been improving. But suddenly, you know, Indian border troops crossed the border and entered in China territory, and until now they are still there. I think that is a very serious incident. I think it is going to damage everything. So I think the better solution for India to withdraw its troops. After that, we can talk about what we are going to talk.
Okay, let me go to you, Mr. Aneja from India. Why do you think, of course you're a journalist, you are not a military official.
Sure.
Neither is Senior Colonel Zhao, even though he has a title, he is more a researcher in the military.
Yeah.
So let me ask both of you as researchers, why do you think, Mr. Aneja, India did so?
Well, as I said, that there was a certain understanding between the special representatives of India and China in 2012 that pending a final resolution on specific areas in the Sikkim section, and that specific area is really the Tri-Junction area. Now, the Tri-Junction area also needs to be resolved, that is the alignment of the Tri-Junction by all the three countries, which would mean China, India and Bhutan. But we were not there right now. But pending that, neither side should change the status quo. Now the Indian narrative is that the status quo was changed by China when it started building the road in the Tri-Junction area. And second point is that this area was a disputed territory between China and Bhutan, with which India has a defense treaty arrangement. And since the démarche of the Bhutanese, which took place in around 20th of June, it does talk about its protest about this. So there is this trilateralism to this entire situation.
Got you. Let me go to some of the points that you raised with the Senior Colonel Zhao. First of all, the three parties that Mr. Aneja mentioned.
The standoff between troops of India and China at the Doklam area near the China-India-Bhutan Tri-Junction continues as either side has come up with any solutions. Now in June this year, India accused China of constructing a road towards the Doklam area, an objection that the Royal Bhutanese Army has also raised. India intervened by sending soldiers and bulldozers across the border into what China claims to be its territory and demanding that China should halt its construction work. Why is India intervening in the dispute, and is there a ready solution? I'm pleased to be joined in the studio by Dr. Binod Singh, Director of the BRICS Institute, New Delhi, and Mr. Ye Hailing, Director of the Center for South Asia Studies at the China Academy of Social Sciences. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. Mr. Ye, let me ask you first, because this seems to be the origin of this dispute.
Sure.
Why is China building roads in the Doklam area?
I think I am the right person to answer this question because I've been there for many times. Not only these Doklam areas, but also many other places alongside in the border at the Tibet Autonomous Region. Their geographic condition is really tough, and our soldiers and our nomads, they live in these areas. Their living condition is also very tough. I've been there, I witnessed that a lot of the logistic supplements has to be carried by hand and with the horses, on the back of the horses. So it's quite tough. It's not a very sophisticated expressway system like from the airport to our downtown. It's not like this. It's still very simple, it's not a very high level standard, the expressway, but the construction is needed for supporting the soldiers and the farmers who live in these areas.
Yeah. Dr. Singh, how is China's action seen on the Indian side? Why does India see this as a threat?
It's hard for you to believe the Indian side, because I have not been to the border area. What we see is that China cannot make the things which it has done in South China Sea. We have been watching South China Sea, what you have done there. That is a reference for us. So if you let you do what you're doing in South China Sea, maybe those countries are small. India is not Philippines, India is not Vietnam. So if you want to do something like you want to do other part of world, that's pretty difficult. So India has objection, and you should listen to India and sit down and talk to them. What's the objection?
But let's take a look at the situation per se, right? Instead of using South China Sea as a reference, because you have to judge the situation as the situation is. Is there any basis really to what India is thinking this time? Or is it just, speculation based on what they think they heard in the South China Sea issue?
If you think this question on the Indian perspective and the Bhutanese perspective, you'll change your mind. So if you talk to anybody who thinks how to make India secure, and now the Prime Minister of India, he's a very good friend of Chinese people. He has been very nice.
He's also very popular here, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Now, why he will do like this? Is he gone mad overnight? Or do you think our army didn't listen to him? Or they're crazy now? I would like to request you that just like the way you oppose Assad in South Korea, the way you oppose Americans coming to North Korea, the way you oppose any other power, trying to change the status quo. So there's only one fight, one point. Please don't change the status quo. Okay. It's not a question of road or airport or whatever. You do it. But there's an agreement. If you have an agreement and you are breaking it, because the other side is a small country. Now, they're just next to me, very close to us. So we have some obligation. Yeah. We have some obligation, 1950, 2007. Yeah. And if you think India will forget the obligations just because of China is a very good friend, that's not true.
So you say India has obligations for Bhutan?
Okay. It does.
Yeah, Dr. Ye, what is your reaction to that?
I would like to make the response. Yeah. Firstly, Dr. Singh mentioned that the South China Sea as a reference, but we should notice that India never stopped the construction in their side border, not only on the disputed areas, but also non-disputed areas. Actually, India has the most sophisticated infrastructure construction project in the Indian side, not on our side. We only paved the road. India has a lot of the chopper plate, and also has a very sophisticated road system. So it's not only China didn't do nothing to so-called change the status quo. India always keep their moving to change the status quo, to create a new status quo. So in this circumstance, how China will understand the Indians' action in the another side of the territory, if India's accusation to China is precisely, so I think China has more reason to raise the same accusation towards to India. That's my first response. Secondly, talking about the Bhutan. I think when we launched the border issue negotiation with Bhutan between China and Bhutan, these two countries, these areas never be to be the issue of this negotiation. We have the border dispute, but not in these areas. So it's not related to Bhutan. It's really only related to India.
What is the core of the problem?
In my understanding,
there have been 24 rounds of negotiations between China and Bhutan.
This area has never been an issue.
Why has there never been a conclusion?
It's because the Bhutan is not an independent country. I quote the Dr. Singh's comment that India has an obligation, but in my understanding, it's not only the obligation; it's also the superpower over the Indians' the Bhutan's independence. This 20 rounds of negotiation not only happened between China and Bhutan. In the negotiation, the table, there's one invisible partners. It's called India. So Bhutan, every time when Bhutan engage with China, they have to report to New Delhi. So in my understanding, it's really difficult to say this is a free will of Bhutan government.
Dr. Singh?
I think we can make it very simple also. Like, it's very next to your house if somebody is making a new. I think you'll have some concerns, okay. What is the purpose of this road, okay. It's good for your PLA that you need a nice, better road. But right now at the border, what we think in India is not the best time. We're not against the road, but we're just saying that you just settle down the problem. Why you need road immediately, why you need it today. It's like a little bit very hard for us to understand, okay. Like,
what has to be the timing then? When
exactly.
is it good timing to build
good time
roads?
is to sit down if Bhutan
and not do anything.
India has the airport, the chopper,
please don't interrupt. Yeah. So what I mean to say as a Indian party here is that please do whatever you want to do if it is your land, but just prove it, it's your land.
Why not let Bhutan...
And how to prove it? If you just say this is my land from the ancient time, this is not the way.
But if it has been the case, is it wrong to say that?
You can always say that this part is China's part, okay?
Because there has been this agreement between China and...
Actually, this area is not under dispute because the Bhutan government never discussed this issue with Chinese government. We have, again, I would like to emphasize, we have the territory dispute, but this area is not included.
In this area.
Yeah.
Why not? Why can't India let Bhutan decide
if you make roads in any
negotiations?
If you make roads in any part of China, it's like you're making a road to Pakistan, okay? What can you do? You have the CPEC corridor, okay? You're doing it because that part is under control of Pakistan, not India. So despite we are against that, please don't go to that POK, Pak-occupied Kashmir. But that's not in Indian control. Right now with Bhutan, we have this kind of understanding. You know, the way you have very good terms with Pakistan, we're not even so close the way you're close to Pakistan.
So are you saying that Bhutan is under Indian control?
That's what you understand. That's what you're trying to understand. What I mean to say here is that we are not even as close to Bhutan as you are close to Pakistan. This is a very good mirror for you to check.
I really difficult to agree with that. We don't have any treaty.
If you have a problem here,
India,
China, you start Pakistan to start shelling there, you know.
Well, you know, this latest news report published by Bhutan News Network by a legal advisor, Wancha Sangay, actually criticized India for using an iron hand to control the Bhutanese economy and preventing a conclusion of the territory negotiation between China and Bhutan. Again, why not let Bhutan negotiate with China on an equal basis?
Yes, ma'am. I would like to what the ambassador of Bhutan said. I think he is more legal than this person, okay? So if you quote him, allow me to quote the ambassador you don't have embassy with Bhutan, but there's a Bhutanese ambassador in New Delhi. So he submitted this to Chinese embassy. He already passed the message. I'm not carrying with me right now. You can read it. So whom should I believe? Should I believe this gentleman or should I believe the legal ambassador of the government of Bhutan? He is the ambassador. The way you just spoke to the ambassador of Pakistan, we also speak to the ambassador.
I do not know.
We can't speak to any person from Bhutan and what do you think of India relationship. We have to speak to the Bhutanese government. And there's no statement from the government of Bhutan that India is wrong.
It's very simple that why we don't have the Bhutan's ambassador in Beijing, because it really doesn't allow it. It's quite simple.
Yeah, there are no diplomatic relations between China and
we all know the reason. Why was the reason behind it? There is no diplomatic relationship? Only between China and Bhutan. Bhutan is the only neighboring country of China we don't have any diplomatic relation. So we know the answer. It's because of the India. It's not because of Bhutan.
Okay, what could be possibly the way out of this standoff? I mean, China is demanding that India withdraw its troops and take back its bulldozers, but India says China needs to stop constructing roads in its territory. What could possibly be the solution?
Very honestly, withdraw the troops is the first.
Sorry?
Withdraw the troops is the
Withdraw
first.
the
Indian
troops
troops
first?
is
What
the
does
first.
the Indian side insist?
Basically, if we withdraw the troops, I think the road will come up. That's the problem. It's very easy for us to withdraw the troops.
So China do any construction in its part of the territory, anywhere along its border, where the roads are very poor, where it's very difficult to access the troops there. Is there any possibility that
Why
China
do you want
can
to go so close to us?
Well,
that's very funny.
why are you so afraid? Well, I think we have to leave it there. Really, this is a topic that we can go on and on, but I think this kind of discussion is necessary, that we sit down face to face and listen to each other. We have to leave it there. Many thanks to Dr. Binod Singh from the BRICS Institute of New Delhi and Mr. Ye Hailing, Director of the Center for South Asia Studies at the China Academy of Social Sciences. And I still have my point to make. Now, China's foreign policy is to create a peaceful and favorable environment for its economic development and the rejuvenation of the Chinese nation through peaceful means. So it is in China's interest to befriend its neighbors and build companionships to increase mutual trust and reduce border frictions. China and India are the most populous countries in the world, and as neighbors, we mean a great deal to each other. When we are enemies, we both lose. When we are friends, we both win. And with that, we come to the end of this edition of The Point with me, Liu Xin. Thank you very much for joining us. Follow us on Twitter or Facebook using the handle The Point with Alex. Download the application CGTN Live to watch our show on your mobile devices, or go to YouTube and look for CGTN The Point. Thanks for watching. I hope you got the point.